The Norse God of War series has a lot of great characters, a lot of characters that I could easily see being people's personal favorites, but for my money, Mimir's the guy. He's got the accent, he's got the stories, he's got the wisdom, he's got the sexual chemistry with Kratos, but if he tells me one more time that I need to throw my axe to let the water down, I'm gonna go back up that mountain and shove his head right up his own. I feel like this is a recent thing that somewhat goes hand in hand with the popularization of characters externalizing all their thoughts during gameplay, but man, some games are determined to ruin every puzzle you come across, huh? It's almost becoming a race to see if I can figure it out before anyone else can say a word, so I can actually feel responsible for the victory, but each game seems to shorten the time before it gives you some helpful dialogue. In 5 years, the characters are just going to tell you how to solve the puzzle before you even enter the room. In another 5, they'll nail you to the wall and go solve it themselves, and in another 10, they'll just walk out of the TV and write all of your real-life exams for you. Hold on a second. Maybe we just let this one play out, see what happens. Sony is becoming notorious for this, with more and more of their first-party titles prominently featuring over-helpful characters. And while I will vehemently argue against anybody who says PlayStation games are just movies, why would you play a game with no choices, all that BS, this is the one element where I start actually seeing that issue. It is a little bit ridiculous that you'd craft all of these gameplay moments where the player needs to think critically and be involved in actually trying to figure out how to progress the narrative or side quest, and then you impatiently just try and move them along as fast as possible. And it's especially weird in a game like God of War Ragnarok that has so many intelligent puzzles that are fun to experience and solve and use all of your different tools. So much time went into this, and then the game steps in and says, let me handle it, because it thinks you're stuck. It's also odd to me that the biggest culprit of this problem is the studio that's pushing accessibility the most. The bevy of options found on modern PlayStation games is crazy, including things like puzzle aim assist or puzzle timing, which can make these sections easier for people who can't manage quick or precise inputs. But there's no general puzzle assist toggle that controls whether a character will tell you about an important element to the solution or not, even though the way to fix this whole issue already exists and is disgustingly easy to implement. Uncharted, a game from Sony, allowed you to press a button for a hint if it was taking you too long to solve. The characters would still chime in a little without it, so it wasn't perfect, but they were usually pretty vague until you explicitly asked to be helped, where it then pointed you in the right direction or gave you a helpful line of dialogue. I could see this coming across as a little bit taunting or condescending to some people though. Kinda like how I hate when I die a couple of times in Doom and I ask if I want to put on the baby goo goo gaga armor. If there's no timer for the hint to show up and it's always there, then you kind of feel like the game thinks you constantly need help. And if you do have a timer for when the hint button shows up, it's kind of telling the player, ooh, just so you know, most people would have figured this out by now, which puts you in the very interesting position of being dumber than the general public. Are you sure you don't need us to step in and figure the whole thing out for you? But if this way of addressing the problem is flawed because it sends the wrong message, then the fix is simple. Let us choose the right message for us. Everyone's first response feels like it's to praise Zelda or Elden Ring or Tunic for not giving any hints to the player, which is refreshing, but it's also not a sign that we have to choose one extreme over the other. For these games, they want to test your self-sufficiency and allow you to discover everything for yourself, but for most others that just want to throw in a few puzzles for a more three-dimensional gameplay experience, would it kill you to just give us options? Shadow of the Tomb Raider allows you to individually select the difficulty levels of the combat, exploration, and puzzles. With the latter, you can choose between easy, medium, or hard, with the easy option giving you a bunch of suggestive voice lines from Lara. Not those suggestive voice lines, as well as very obviously highlighting interactables during what's effectively your listening mode. Normal makes it a bit more ambiguous, and hard leaves you entirely on your own. Just figure it out. Would you look at that? We've already found a way to fix this whole thing, we're just not using it anymore. The fact that difficulty and assist options have gotten so advanced but this idea has been left in the dust is so confusing to me. If anything, I should be able to get even more into the weeds. Let me choose if I want no solution dialogue, no hint option available, and no highlighted indicators, or if I want to switch any of those individual things on. Maybe you can truncate it to make the amount of options a little bit less daunting, but the implementation would be simple. These voice lines are activated during these puzzles after a certain amount of time. If I switch this toggle off, don't have them say the lines at all. If I select toggle hints, then have a prompt that will finally allow these lines, like Uncharted, and if I switch it all the way on, then execute the dialogue like you currently have it set up. I know this isn't actually hard to do, it's just adding in a few simple conditions. It's really just an oversight from developers, but I think it deserves a bit more attention from them. The issue with the current hint system is that it completely destroys a major element of these games. Puzzle solving is always a major feature of action-adventure titles, and devs know that. That's why they put so many damn puzzles all over the place, but when you universally de-emphasize actually solving this stuff and instead guide the player very obviously to the solution, it feels cheap. Like they could have just put anything in there and it wouldn't matter, it's just a way to slow the pace down. That's not fair, these are fun, they took a long time to design, why are you doing it for me? In fairness, there are still moments in these games where I do have to think and solve things for myself, but sporadically the next step would get ruined or I'd keep hearing about things that I already knew about, which is annoying because I feel like this is the the only thing that gets treated this way. You wouldn't play the combat for me, would you? You wouldn't just rocket down an NPC to help if I haven't beaten an encounter in 30 seconds or less and then just have him one-tap every enemy and zoom off again. That would be ridiculous. The Last of Us 2 has a couple of general options for highlighting interactables and stuff, but its main solution for people who don't want to deal with puzzles is a skip puzzles option, which, okay, if you really hate puzzles or for some reason are unable to do them, then I won't hate on that option, obviously. Especially because you're actually able to choose that for yourself and don't have to do it, but there's also no way to hide or remove other puzzle indicators, especially verbal, so for people who don't want this stuff, you don't really get an option for that. I don't even mind Spider-Man giving everyone individual skip puzzle options at every difficulty for every puzzle because it's potentially a nice thing to have on a replay. Even though these aren't that great, I don't think it's an indication of the game not having faith in its puzzles like some people suggest, because then by that logic, all of these games don't have faith in their cutscenes because it has an option for skipping them. But for a long time now, it's felt like some studios, especially PlayStation, just haven't treated some of their great, sprawling, clever moments with the same amount of respect as everything else. Even in ways that are sometimes a bit more subtle, like instead of telling you what to do next, characters might tell you that you're on the right track after every action. Yeah, you're not spoiling it for me anymore, but the best puzzles are multifaceted and require you to juggle a few things at a time. If you're telling me when every part is right, you're almost linearizing the puzzle, which can also ruin it. Linear story is good, linear puzzle is stupid and pointless. Not to mention that when all of these games have 90 total minutes of peppy, nice, you're almost there, I think you got it, dialogue, I start feeling less like I'm playing God of War and more like I'm playing Just Dance. It's not just PlayStation that has this problem, but I think their games are where it shines through the most. And while they've made some of my favorite experiences of all time, I'm getting really tired of hearing, "Brother, I think you can throw your axe there. It'll cause the water to fall and you can press triangle to recall the axe back to you. After that, press the left analog stick to move forward and make a turn when you..."